this weekend, China made it official. It is moving forward, indeed, with a $400 billion deal with Iran. What's the deal? Well, it goes something like this. China will pump $400 billion into the flailing Iranian economy. And for the next 25 years, Iran will pump a steady stream of oil into the Chinese economy. That's the deal.
Meeting a couple of weeks ago between the U.S. and China out in Alaska, you had Secretary Antony Blinken coming in saying, hey, we're the U.S., we're strong, this is how we're going to do it, this is how you're going to comply, this is how it's going to be. And China has always been very diplomatic at these meetings. Not so much anymore, Rick. Take a listen.
We thought that the U.S. would follow basic diplomatic protocol. We should clarify our position immediately. Let me tell you something. You have no right to tell China that you start from a position of strength when talking to us. It is a failure to use various means to topple the so-called authoritarian states.
As you say in that clip, the Chinese delegation said something that was very telling. He said that you should not approach us as if you have any advantage over us, as if we are beneath you. And he's talking to the American delegation. And that's an amazing thing. That is the most important thing you've had for the last 10 years. The historical implications of that moment are very powerful. I know you don't believe me, but I'm telling you it is very powerful. You have just witnessed history being made. That the Chinese delegation is telling the American delegation, you will not talk to me as if you have more power than me. I now have more power than you. That's what the man was saying. Like, who are you talking to like that? Who are you giving that speech to? Who are you wagging your finger at? So China and America has just shown us that a transition has happened. No one has ever spoken like that to the Americans, ever. No one has spoken to the Mzungu like that, ever. Because in 10 years' time, China will exceed the United States in economic output. And for the first time in 500 years, the Mzungu Empire will be surpassed for the first time. They cannot remember, that is the Mzungu, they cannot remember when they were not on top of the world. And their arrogance is based upon that we have ruled over all of you for 500 years. And they believe that they will continue for another 1,000 years. But something has happened. China showed up from nowhere and is now taking over everywhere. And this conversation that was happening was a powerful conversation. It was the Mzungu being told that your time is up. You will not talk to me like that. You will not talk to me as if I am beneath you. Things have changed. And when you look at the rest of the clip, you'll see that China has signed a trade deal with Iran worth $400 billion. Now, Iran is under sanctions by America and the Western European countries. And also countries like Kenya. You know, slave countries have to follow their master. But China signed a trade deal with them worth $400 billion, breaking the sanctions, showing the Western world that you no longer have power. You put sanctions on someone, we trade with that person. We don't need you. We are more than enough without you. And America was in shock. And so they went to talk to the Chinese to tell them that you have to comply with our wishes to blockade Iran. And the Chinese responded, you will not talk to us like that. as if we are beneath you. We do what we want. And America doesn't have a response to that. The delegation was shocked and they fell silent. And they cannot do anything to stop what is happening. They've just been made irrelevant. I know you don't believe me. You have witnessed an empire collapsing. You've seen it with your own eyes. You are the chosen generation to see when the Mzungu will come to his end. You are seeing it with your own eyes. It just happened in that small meeting. It just happened. And word is spreading that the Mzungu Empire is over. The word is spreading. And I'm here spreading it also to you. Talking about what position should Kenya take now that the Mzungu is on his way out. The empire is declining. You can see the cracks. The writing is on the wall. So Kenya also needs a paradigm shift, because you've been living in a paradigm of Mzungu being God, literally. Like if you go to any Kenyan place of worship, you will find Kenyans worshipping cartoon pictures and paintings and statues of the Mzungu, calling the Mzungu God, literally. But it's over. You remember 2 years ago, Jubilee handed over a gold mine in Kenya to the Mzungu. And you know, that pains me. Do you know how much gold ore is there? The gold mine is in Narok. It has 8.7 million tons of gold ore. How do you hand over 8.7 million tons of gold ore to a foreigner? And half your population lives in slums. You know, that thing pains me. And they did this because they're operating under the paradigm of the Mzungu being God. Right? But what has happened in this video clip shows you that their empire is over. It's time for us to change our paradigm shift. It's over for them. It's time for you to stop worshiping them as God. It's over. Now let's talk facts. In the next 10 years, the Chinese economy will exceed America's economy. By far. Right now, they are the same. 14 trillion for 14 trillion in output. And China is still developing because it has many, many underdeveloped places, and it has a lot of poverty. Not the extreme poverty that we see in Africa, but it has a lot of poverty still. So it still has the capacity to expand. So we expect that over the next 15 years, the next 20 years, the Chinese economy will move from $14 trillion maybe to 21, 22 trillion. They will far exceed America's economy. And this has global implications, because this is financial power. Financial power is more important than military power, because Russia has a lot of missiles, but they don't have much influence in the world because they don't have money. But they have over 10,000 nuclear bombs. But that doesn't translate into global influence. Money does. The Chinese have money. And what would it take to collapse America? Well, if the Chinese decide to introduce a new global reserve currency that everyone has equal access to, and that no one can be blackmailed or sanctioned, and other countries sign on to that, America becomes bankrupt overnight, because they already have a debt of 28 trillion. They can never hope to pay that. They only survive because the rest of the world uses the US dollar for trade. That's how they're able to survive. If you didn't understand how the game goes, this is how the game goes. It's very simple. America produces very little in terms of goods. Very little. Right? What they actually sell to the world is colored paper. That dollar is literally a piece of paper. You know that. It is not a piece of gold. It is a piece of paper that has been printed on it. Is that not true? So they print these pieces of paper, they place them inside a plane, vast pieces of paper, many. And they take the plane to China. And in exchange for the pieces of paper, they are given actual goods, cell phones, computers, dishwashers, all sorts of machinery. In exchange for what? For pieces of paper. They go to Nigeria. They print more pieces of paper. They show up in Nigeria. They give the Nigerians those pieces of paper. And in exchange, the Nigerians give them actual oil. Something that is actually real. A finite resource. They go to Congo, South Africa. They give out more pieces of paper and they get actual gold and actual diamonds. Real things in exchange for their pieces of paper. They come to Kenya with these pieces of paper. They give us those pieces of paper. We give them coffee, an actual real thing, an actual product. In exchange, we get the pieces of paper. So the day the world will reject those pieces of paper, America will become bankrupt overnight. They will not be able to sustain their huge military, and they'll be forced to withdraw all over the world. So they are very vulnerable right now to China, and the Chinese appear to know this. So what does that mean for Kenya? It means we have to change the paradigm under which we operate. It is time to stop worshipping the Mzungu as God. It's time to remove their pictures, their statues, their paintings from all the temples and the churches, because their time is up. You can't stop it. You cannot delay it. The writing is on the wall. They are done for. All empires operate through cycles, and now their time for dying has come. The decline, we can see the decline. We can see the signs of decline all over. Their relative position vis-a-vis other nations is totally different. Other people have grown up. Now Kenya has, what, 45 million people. We are no longer a small nation. We are not a tiny nation. We need to change our mind about ourselves. We need to stop seeing ourselves as less than. If we are 45 million right now, that's not a small nation. That's a big nation. It's time to behave like big boys. It's time to stop taking instructions from Mzungu. Why would you sign a 25-year-old trade deal with England? For what? Why would you do that? Where will England be in 25 years? They are in a strategically hopeless position. They are losing people. Their population is declining. More and more of them are getting older. They are getting replaced by immigrants. And this same thing is happening all over Western Europe and North America. In America, as we speak, like 40,000 people are crossing the border every day. Spanish is now the second largest language. They are being replaced. The original Americans, quote unquote, are being replaced by immigrants. In fact, their own numbers show that by 2030 or 2040, the Mzungu American will be a small minority in that country. They will lose all power and influence. So what does that mean? It means everything. Will the new immigrants take the same posture, aggressive military posture, as the traditional Americans? Most likely they will not, because they don't have the same historical hang-ups. For Western Europe, the crisis is even worse, because they are, not only are they losing their population, they're in a horrible bind. Now, this is the bind that they find themselves in. The median age of Western Europeans, I think, is 45, maybe 50, which means that 40% of their population is 60 years and older. And they are not getting as many children. They're not even replacing themselves. So what does that mean over the next 25 years? It means this 40% older group will be gone, and their population will decline by 25%. So what does that mean? It means that their economy will contract because of losing so many people and not having enough people to replace them. So the economy gets less. Entire towns have to be abandoned. Schools have to be closed because there are no children. And if the schools go, the clinic is not there. The bus line also stops. A whole host of services stop. So if they accept not to have immigration because they want to keep themselves racially poor. It means they also have to accept that the economy will contract, which means globally they'll have less and less influence. On the other hand, if they accept immigration, it means that they'll be replaced by the immigrants. It means that over time, the immigrants will take larger and larger proportion of the population. What does that mean? It means you're being colonized. When you're being flooded out by immigrants, you are getting colonized. Mnanyang'anywa inchi, you're losing the country. Now, as very well know, one of the few things that Africans produce and export is refugees. We are very good at producing, people. Now, these African refugees are flooding over the Mediterranean Sea and going into Europe. It's basically a land invasion. No, it's a sea invasion. So Africans are invading Europe in huge numbers. They are struggling to stop those boats from crossing over. So if you go to France right now, you'll find that the population of France has really changed. It is full of West Africans. In fact, France will be the first African European country if the trend continues, and it will continue because the French are not getting as many babies and many of them are older. And so they're getting flooded out. They're literally losing their countries. And we can see the process now. So what happens in 25 years? They'll have lost almost all influence, almost all their power over the next 25 years. And that's the same situation in England. More foreigners or non-English people live in London than English people. Think about that. And if the capital city is gone and the rest of the British are being pushed to other areas, what future do they have? They're in a strategically hopeless situation. They've lost all historical initiative. And in war, we always say, if you lose battlefield initiative, you're done for. It's just a matter of time before you get defeated. And so we can see the end of global white supremacy. We can see the end of the global empire that they created. And this clip was very telling in the way the Chinese delegation was talking to the American delegation, that not only are we your equals, we've also surpassed you. So you don't talk to us as if we are beneath you. It was very telling because they are talking down to the American delegation. And the issue at stake was something that is very near and dear to the Americans, to blockade Iran, because they're still operating in the paradigm of 1990, not understanding that the situation has changed. No one really needs them anymore. If you can sign a trade deal with China, you don't need any Western nation. You really don't. For what? So it's also time for Kenyans to change your paradigm. You need to stop worshipping the Mzungu, because historically his time is up. It's time for us to grow up, to stand up like grown-ups. Cut the umbilical cord. They are done for. It's time to move on. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the CCV movement, and together let us kick poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the CCV is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon Christian values, unlike the rest. We'll see you next time. Thank you.